But I just want everyone to be kind of open, because like a lot of people said, I'm never going to move. And that's the way I feel. But is that maybe a sign of denial, to think that I never have to move? And hopefully I never have to move. And hopefully those who don't want to move never have to move. But that may not be the most proactive way of thinking how life can change over time. So I think 2 years ago, I shared with you how my dad, he had decided he was never going to move, and then he had a stroke. And that totally changed his life and turned it upside down. And he found himself in assisted living, and he went kicking and screaming because he'd never thought about the fact that he would never have to move from where he was. But life changed, didn't it? And we have to adapt, and he's doing great now. But you know, things happen in life where we need to make a change. Maybe it's going up and down the stairs. We can deal with it now. We put up with it, as Annette said. We might grumble about it, but progressively maybe it gets worse, and we're in denial about the fact that this isn't good for us. We're not in the best place. So some people stay in that too long, and then other people realize, okay, there are other options, and that's where the thinking, planning, and ultimately taking action is. So I just ask everyone to keep an open mind. We can be in the thinking and planning stage for a whole long time. We may not move for 20, 30 years, but if we've thought about and had a little bit of a plan, when it's time to take action, would you agree we're in a much better position then? We kind of know what the options are rather than having someone perhaps force it upon us. So I want to jump over to our panelists and go through some examples of where people are in their best place, or perhaps need to reconsider to be in their best place, and what that kind of looks like. What are some of the triggers that we might come across that would identify to us that we're no longer in the best place? So the question we have on the slide is, how do I know when I may no longer be in the best place? And then it kind of touched on it. Maybe if we're complaining, that might be one signal, but what are some more concrete triggers that would cause us perhaps to complain? So who'd like to start? Laurie, do you want to start with an example?
Yeah, so, maybe it's what Annette has been saying, to connect with yourself. Are you thriving? Fear of the unknown is a real barrier for a lot of people to making any sort of move. So to evaluate, are you happy? Are you cooking? Are you driving? As people age, and sorry, I'm just, trying to get a handle on, things will never stay the same. So people move for a variety of reasons, because they have too many stairs, their knees are giving out, their eyesight is diminishing. So all of that affects independence. And so whether are you still mastering the things that you used to master and you used to love, as well as is it providing that comfort zone for you? So all of those factors, contribute to that thinking, planning, action. It is important to have a plan to stay in your home, to make a move when you are no longer feeling that you are thriving. So that's a big word in our business, and it could be loneliness. So keep an open mind, as Brett said.
So can you think, as you are the director of a wonderful independent living community here, can you think of a resident who has recently moved in, and it was what their trigger was? You mentioned loneliness. What did that look like? Why did they decide to leave the place that they were hoping to be in forever to move into your community? What was it that kind of triggered that?
So some of the more common triggers are people moving to be closer to family when they are feeling no longer supported in their current environment. Their friends, their family are not nearby. But others, it's about continuing on a path of independence. So when you move into a retirement community, you're not only changing your location and your dwelling, but you're choosing a lifestyle, and it is a choice at that point. People often eat better, their nutrition is improved. That has a direct correlation to improving health, of purpose, having a maintenance-free lifestyle. And so when people find they're in too much house, too much yard, then to make that move into something a lot more maintenance-free, there is safety and security, peace of mind.
Actually going to point out that we're talking about the best place. There is no perfect place. So no matter where you are, there's going to be some issues, and sometimes things aren't working now, but maybe you can make some changes and they're working later on. So when we talk about best place, just keep that in mind. No matter where you go, even if you make a move, there's going to be things that are going to be better, and there's going to be things that aren't going to be better. But what our goal is to get that best place.
And it's a compromise of leaving what's most familiar for something that is very unfamiliar. And that is scary, but it's a trade-off. And that's where the compromise comes in, to leave the things behind that are causing you trouble and gain some things that will provide more enjoyment into your life.
Thank you. So Ryan, do you have an example for us?
Yes. So, we take care of a lot of folks around the community, down all the way through Carson, Gardnerville. And one couple that I thought of in particular were both diagnosed, husband-wife couple, were diagnosed with Parkinson's, both of them. They lived in a 2-story house that had stairs everywhere. The wife started falling almost daily. And so we had ramps installed. We did everything we could. They had us there taking care of them. And at one point it got to it came to a point where they just couldn't do it anymore. And so, I lost them as a client, but I referred them to an assisted living because that was the right place for them at that time. They had pretty much 24/7 caregiving oversight. They actually brought us in part-time too to help additionally because, in an assisted living community, you have to push a button if you're in trouble, and then you have to wait for the caregivers to come, and it can take hours sometimes because most of the places are understaffed. So they brought us in to help out. It really helped them because they no longer had a meal prep. They could just go down and eat or get the food brought up to them. So that was one example that I can think of where, the stairs, just the steps and the stairs in the home alone caused them to move out because that was no longer the right place for them. So they sold their house. They made, pretty good money on it. And then that helped support them in the assisted living community as well as their long-term care insurance. So, when we see that going on, we have caregivers in these places, in these homes daily. When we see that going on, I'm the first one to step in and say, hey, look, this is no longer the right place for you. You guys need a higher level of care and support. And I'm the first one to, unfortunately lose them as a client, but then refer them to the right place because that's what needs to happen.
Thanks, Ryan. Annette, do you have an example?
Yes, we had a lady so we've been doing the Retired Living Truth series for 5 years now, or we're on our 5th year? 4.5 years. And she came to all of our events, because we don't just do this, we have other events that we do as well. She came to everything. She was very outgoing. She loved to attend. And then we stopped seeing her. And I was calling her up, just checking in on her, and she had been diagnosed with an illness that just was going to get progressively worse. And so she started isolating herself in her home. And this is a home that she, from the get-go, she told us, I come to all your events, but I have no intention of ever moving. The house, it works for me, everything works for me. But she started isolating in her home, and this was 2 years ago. So this was before COVID, before we were supposed to isolate in our home. So 2 years in her home, it turned into, when I would call her up and talk to her, she wasn't talking about the things that she was excited about and looking forward to things. She was talking about her illness and how miserable she was. Every conversation was like that. She didn't have anything, she didn't have any visitors, she didn't have anybody to interact with. So the conversation that I started having with her is maybe you should start looking at other places to go check out, go to independent living where you're at least around people, because she was so social. How she was before was completely different. She was very outgoing. And she ended up moving into an independent living community. And now when I call her up to talk to her, she's talking about all the activities, the people that she's met. She is so happy. The conversation is completely different. And yes, she still has this illness, but it is not taking over her life. It's not the only thing she's talking about anymore.
Thank you, Annette. Laurie, you have another example? Another trigger? I know you gave us like 6 or 7 all at once.
Well, Downsizing. I mean, when you finally recognize that you're just ready to let go of the management, that having a larger home or whatever your home is that is becoming more difficult to maintain, thoughts of moving into that maintenance-free environment, which includes independent living, it could be assisted living, but it's still a choice at that point. So you want to be in that best place, not the place that you struggle with, that is starting to overwhelm you. Health factors influence people. It doesn't mean you're ready for the nursing home. It just maybe means that you would benefit from having meals prepared, having a menued, weighted dining environment, activities, transportation, housekeeping, all designed to make life a little easier for you. So I would say, downsizing to a smaller home, to apartment-style community living, when you just have more than you can manage. It could be your yard. It could be when you lose a spouse, and now not only there's loneliness, but also just the sheer effort involved in trying to do things for yourself that you used to have help with.
Excellent.
I think it's important to piggyback on what Laurie just said. I feel it really needs to be when you have a choice. Barring any catastrophic event, strokes, or anything like that, the best decision is not under duress. So when you can make the decision and have it be your choice is typically the best way to do it. Again, we can't control how life happens and what happens to folks out there with medical issues and stuff like that. But when it's your choice, it always feels so much better. And your choice, not maybe your kid's choice. Because that happens a lot too, where we see, the kids making the choice for their parents, and the parents end up resenting that choice and resenting their kids. So I think it's important to just kind of mention that.
That's a great point, Ryan. Could that also be the case of like a stroke? If I'd done some pre-planning and looked at different options, have it known to my family, and if anything was to happen, if I was to have a stroke like my dad, this is where I want to go because I've already been there and I really like it. So is it still possible even with the unexpected?
Yeah, I think so. Planning is everything. There's a term I used often. Nobody ever said, "I wish I would have waited," right? So if you can kind of look at things and just be prepared for, plan for the best, prepare for the best, plan for the worst. Is that the way it goes? I might have that completely backwards, but that's okay. If you can be prepared for kind of anything that life throws at you, it's always the best way, and have a backup plan. And there's people that can help do that. I do that a lot with my clients. We just kind of say, hey, if we have progressive Parkinson's, this is likely going to get worse. With the best medication out there, you're going to lose mobility, you're going to lose things. So let's start looking now while we're mobile, while we can still, have a clear train of thought when we're doing this kind of thing. And I play taxi all the time with my clients. I'll take them around to 5 different communities if that's what's necessary, and just say, hey, I like certain aspects of this one. I like certain aspects of this one. There's, like a 3-in-1 where they have, like if it's early Alzheimer's or something like that, where they can start independent, move to assisted, and then eventually go to memory care if necessary. And then they don't ever have to move out of the, from under that roof. And so those are all things to take into consideration. And pretty much any of the sponsors, anybody sitting on this panel, including Brett and Vic back there, we can all help with that kind of thing. And we're happy to. It's what we do for a living.
Thanks, Ryan. So Laurie talked about downsizing, and we've talked about moving to communities. But what about Annette? Can you talk about a trigger, and what about just maybe moving to a smaller house, whether it's a smaller house you buy or a rental? Isn't that not also an option that we should be?
It certainly is. I had a client recently that they'd been living on a ranch actually for 40 years, loved it. And, but they, a couple things were happening. It was difficult for him. His health was deteriorating, so she was basically his caregiver. So what kind of condition is his ranch ending up in as she's caring for him and he's no longer able to take care of the grounds? So things started deteriorating, the land, the house, everything. And there was a lot of pressure on her. She was in tears a lot of the time. So much pressure. So we started looking at different places for them to move to. They didn't want to go to a community. They wanted a smaller home. So we found them a smaller home that backed to open space. So it had that open feel to it, but they didn't have to take care of that open space. They had a small yard, everything, and much newer home. It also, the great thing about that is that they were house rich and cash poor. So we were able to sell the ranch and do a reverse buy with a reverse mortgage. So it freed up their cash. They don't have any house payments anymore, so that she can enjoy being a wife instead of worrying about everything else that needs to be taken care of in the space.
Do we have any other examples, any other triggers that we haven't covered that we'd like to touch on?
Well, we have a resident who recently moved in quite quickly after losing her husband. And her motivation to move was somewhat rooted in the memories that were in the home that she had shared with her husband. Some people find comfort in that, and others, it's very difficult and sad to remain in an environment that once held very wonderful memories. And her choice was to begin a new life and begin a new chapter, have people to do things with. And it was healthy. It was a healthy choice for her. And it takes a lot of courage, as I said. And as Ryan was indicating, I mean, when is the right time? It's really hard to know. If you want to keep it your choice, then you want to make a move, whether it's downsizing or a lifestyle choice, while you're still able to enjoy it. And that's really not an age thing at all. It's a peace of mind and a wellness choice on how do you want to spend your remaining active years in your current environment. Do you need to bring in services to make that an enjoyable space, or do you need to make a move into a more enjoyable space? But to keep it your choice, you want to think about that before your health determines it for you.
Great, thank you. So if we're wanting to stay where we are as long as we possibly can, and we are having some challenges, whether they're physical or whatever the case may be, what are some of the modifications, changes that we could potentially make in our current home without moving to stay there as long as possible? What are some of the things you see clients do, Ryan?
The biggest thing is like fall and trip hazards. I think that's the biggest thing to kind of consider. I mean, there's grab bars, there's modifications to bathrooms to make them more ADA compliant. Stairs, I think we've alluded to many, many times. Pets are actually one of the biggest causes for falls. Oxygen tubing, anything like that. Obviously, if you're on oxygen, you can't really help that. You just have to be kind of self-aware. But most of the communities, they'll allow pets, but then you get out of the big 2- and 3-story houses where, it's a single story, or even some of the 55 and over communities like the Regency down in South Reno. We take care of a lot of folks down there. They have clubhouses, they have beautiful pools, they have activities, all that kind of stuff. The houses are beautiful. They're all single story, very ADA compliant. And then you have a community around you with like-minded individuals. So there's all kinds of things you can do to modify your own house, but it comes to a point where, I mean, it's just kind of out of control, or out of your control, where you're having to get the house completely gutted. At that point, it's like, what are we doing here? Let's look at maybe getting into a smaller, right sizing your house to where it's more ADA compliant and just set up better for that type of lifestyle.
Good point.
It's also good to call. So if you have stairs and you want to stay in your 2-story house and you need help with those, you can call up the elevator company. You can they do the chairs that will lift you up the stairs, as well as elevators, but not everybody can afford an elevator or even have the space to put one in. But just the fact of just being able to get up the stairs with one of the ramps. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then I know we're going to be talking about resources, but I absolutely love the Continuum. They've got their mod squad. They will come out for free and take a look at your space and be able to give their advice on what to make it more. They'll talk to you about what's your concern, and then they'll talk to you about the things that can be done to make it suit your needs better.
And just simple things like throw rugs.
Mm-hmm.
Throw rugs are awful for, trip and fall hazards. So, I mean, there's all kinds of things, and we can come in and do the same thing. I mean, it's not like it takes a license to do that, but just having seen so many situations in environments, we can really kind of help and just make a few small recommendations that maybe saves you a broken hip, I mean, I hate to say it, but that's literally what it'll save you at some point.
So other things that would cause someone to think about moving, that perhaps we could extend that period of time. Can we bring, what kind of forms of help? Well, you'd mentioned your service, Ryan, but what about handyman?
Yeah,
Gardener?
exactly. I mean, we've talked about this. As long as you've got the financial means, but not everybody does. So if you have the financial means to hire a handyman, a gardener, a house cleaner, just to help keep that up at your home, that's terrific. And then also, and I know I'm bringing up doing reverse mortgage again. That's not for everybody, but it is an option. If you have all your cash tied up in your house, you might want to look at that so that you have the cash to be able to stay where you are and be able to take care of your space.
Yeah, and I think finances come into play a lot. There's a lot of resources out there that most people don't know about. Long-term care insurance, we can certainly speak on. VA benefits that can certainly help keep you in your home. And, they'll pay for my types of services as well as many others, the continuum or any kind of adult daycare in general. So there's tons of resources, and just please ask if you're wondering about any of those.
I guess, as you said, Ryan, it's kind of working out that financial, what resources you have, and then not overusing your resources to stay where you are when maybe it'd be more effective to find a new best place, whatever that might be.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
I'd like to add a little something.
Yeah, please, Laurie.
So what you'll find in the retirement communities in the Northern Nevada area, or Reno, Sparks, Carson area, it's a lease arrangement, not a buy-in. So, for some people, a resource is to consolidate your expenses, where it's maybe it's memory impairment, but for whatever reason, if you have a lot to manage financially, to move into a retirement community, whether it's independent living or even assisted living, consolidates a lot of expenses, eliminates some expenses. So if part of the problem is simply your financial position, you may find we all offer a worksheet to help you compare what are the expenses that you incur living in a private residence and versus moving into a retirement community. Which ones of those expenses are absorbed into a monthly fee? So it's an all-inclusive fee that just also helps people manage their finances a little easier, where maybe you don't have property tax anymore. So some of the influence could simply be your financial means and what is a good solution to helping fix that.
Right. Thank you, Laurie. So that's a good segue into what the different types of options are. So, as we age, whether it's 15, 20, 30 years from now, what are some of the options to consider if we started from, we talked about staying in your home and making changes. And if that doesn't work, what would be the next one? So can you talk to that, Annette?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I'm helping a gentleman right now that his wife passed away several years ago. So he was in his home, and just a lot of memories there. I mean, she basically designed the house and did everything. So it was very painful for him. But he really had a very good relationship with his sister-in-law. And his sister-in-law lives out of state, and she offered to him, and her spouse had also passed away. And she said, why don't you come and you can rent out half the house. So it helps her stay in her home. They already get along well. He rents out half the house. He has a place to stay. He doesn't have to worry about the grounds anymore. And he really wanted to travel. So having a roommate. Now it got me thinking, would I move in with my brother-in-law? And the answer would be no. But
out of that comfort zone?
That would definitely be out of my comfort zone. But for him, that really works. So look to see what options there are, whether it be staying in your own home and getting a roommate, that the social aspect. They talk about the fact that you live longer when you live with somebody else. It makes sense. If you fell down or something happened to you, there is somebody there that can get help for you. So being able to stay in your own home, we have people that rent, so they decide to sell their home, they want to free up their cash, they rent, they want that flexibility to be able to live wherever they want to live, or they want to be near family, but they have kids scattered all over the place and are not really sure which child they want to live near, and even if that child is going to stay where they're at. So it would be terrible to move close to their child and buy another house, and then that child move. Now you're around people you don't know at all. So offering just to rent a place and just see, as Laurie was talking about, the independent living, and you're renting basically. So it is not permanent. You can make that move, test it out, see what you think, and then move somewhere else if you choose to.
Great. So we've got moving to a smaller, more manageable home, moving to something that we could rent, moving in with a sibling or a child, independent living. So let's just talk about independent living for a moment. So what does that look like? As you said, it's a month-to-month lease, and just run through again the things that we no longer need to worry about because it's all included. And I know you mentioned them earlier, but if we could just...
Exactly. So you make a little mini home. You know, when you move to an apartment that also provides you with amenities, you get to keep what you love and what you've surrounded yourself with. It's just a smaller home, but it's very service-based. And again, independent living allows you to come and go as you please and take advantage of activities that are of interest to you. Dining is really a wonderful luxury for most residents to take the guesswork out of not only shopping for food, preparing food. For a lot of people, it's just not very exciting to do that for yourself. And so when you have the opportunity to not only dine with other people, to have some sort of social outlet, you can be very private in a retirement community. Nothing is expected of you, but the resources are there to, as I've said earlier, help to keep you independent, whether that's because you now have transportation to get you to not only doctor's appointments or any appointments, but grocery shopping and entertainment. That's all provided in a retirement community setting. And I have watched so many people, I've worked at Promenade for 17 years, become more active, more independent. And many people who have said, I wish I had thought of this sooner. It isn't the environment that so many of us knew our grandparents went into. It didn't used to exist. You went from your home into the nursing home, and you didn't really want to go there, and your children didn't want to put their parents there. But independent living is now is positive. It's as positive as you want to make it to help eliminate some of the downsides of just normal aging. And people with memory impairment do very well in independent living for a point because they have less to manage of their own, and it helps them thrive as long as possible.
Yeah. Thank you, Laurie. So then, Ryan, assisted living would be the next one from independent living. How does that differ from independent living as you see it with your clients who make that move?
So assisted living versus independent living, basically you have a call button or some version thereof that you have caregivers on your floor. And when you need something, the caregivers are there to provide non-medical help. So that's a little bit different. That it differs from independent living in that you have care available, caregivers available. In independent living, you don't. You really don't, unless you hire like a company like mine or something like that. So it's really not a ton different besides the fact that you don't have help when you push your button. There's a lot of communities that have like it would be like Laurie's community where it's independent living, but then you could move to assisted living and still stay in the same room. In other words, the rooms are licensed for both. There's several of them around here that are like that. So that can be really helpful if you think that if there's some sort of disease state that's going on. Parkinson's is always the one I go to because that's kind of a really slow progressive typically. Any kind of dementia, Alzheimer's, same thing. You can kind of transition as you need to go. So, but assisted typically is all inclusive as well, where you can still go down and dine in the dining room with, there's some communities have assisted living dining rooms and independent living dining rooms, but then they can kind of commingle as well. So it's all different. Every community is a little bit different. So definitely do your homework. Everybody in this room, all of our sponsors included, are really helpful and can point you in the right direction. So can I speak on in-home care too a little bit?
Yeah, sure.
Just real quick. So the other option is that you can stay in your home and have help like from a company like mine. We also do a lot of respite care. So in other words, husband, wife, husband has, moderate dementia or Alzheimer's. Being a caregiver for something like that can be really taxing on the wife or the caregiver, the spouse caregiver. So we can come in and provide, we can come in for a full weekend and the wife can go away and go out with her girlfriends and go gambling or shopping or whatever. So there's really nothing we can't do in that regard. And that can be really helpful if you do want to stay in your home, or if you can't afford to go live in assisted living or put that husband in memory care, which is, the last straw that we want most folks want to do.
I'm feeling uncomfortable because he keeps referring to us guys, and it's our spouses, our wives that are taking care of us. So I don't know if that's a trend, or there's some statistics behind that, or that was just an example. But
no,
I'm a
Brad,
little uncomfortable over
I'm
here.
sorry. I've seen both
The odds aren't
male
my favour.
and female.
Okay, I've seen both.
I'd like to add to that as well. So keep in mind, if you make the decision to move into an independent retirement community for those services, the maintenance-free environment and everything else, we also will help you age in place there. It becomes your home. And one of the more natural first steps as someone requires additional care is to refer them to home care, to come in and support and augment additional services. So it works like assisted living, but as Ryan said, the difference is independent living communities aren't licensed. The staff is not licensed to provide that care, but we can put you in touch with the companies that are, and you can live there for the rest of your life. So without knowing what the future holds, there are definitely options to help you stay in that current environment, as long as we all feel it's a safe environment for you. And that isn't always the case. When it isn't, then there's a conversation about helping you transition to that higher level of care that can support your needs.
And,
Thank you, Laurie.
just real quick, we've actually provided 24/7 care for folks in independent living. So, I mean, that's just like assisted living, but you always have a caregiver there. You don't ever have to push a button. They're just always there. Sometimes they sleep there, sometimes they don't. It just it's situationally dependent. So
lots of options.
Lots of options,
Yeah.
yep.
And we're not trying to suggest anyone needs to move. That's not the intent of this at all. It's just so, if we have knowledge, we have power in terms of knowing what our options are. So it's just trying to, make sure everyone has great information. And then the last one, CCRC, I'd like you to just touch on really briefly. And in May, I think it is, we're doing the Truth About 55 Plus living options. So this was just a really quick highlight of what they are. We'll go into more detail and how they look different, and we'll have photos and we'll set up some tours like we've done in the past. But what's a CCRC? We don't have them here, but just so people are aware.
A CCRC is Continuing Care Retirement Community. And that is where you have all the care: independent, assisted, memory care, and skilled nursing. So you move in and all your needs are met no matter where you land. Now, with a continuing care community, oftentimes it's great for couples because as one may need a lot more help than the other, they're still together in that community because it covers all 4 levels of care. You typically have to buy into the community. So now we don't have any in Northern Nevada, but we've had quite a few clients that have moved to Washington, California, going to New York, Oregon. There are continuing care communities that usually they move to those when they're out, they want to be closer to family, and they just want to know that everything's being taken care of. The CCRCs, you could move into a little villa that they have, so a standalone house that they have on the grounds. They have apartments that you can move into. Typically, you need to be independent when you move in. They have you go through a health screening, and if you don't match up with that health screening, then you are not accepted. So you need to be healthy moving into it, and then it's one of those places you plan ahead. oftentimes they've got multiple restaurants you can go to. Some of them have golf courses. Some of them are gated. I mean, they're beautiful grounds and they just cover everything.
Thank you, Annette.
We'll get to questions shortly.
So just going. So hopefully we can move beyond denial for anyone who's in that stage. And the whole goal of this is really just to open up our minds to the thinking, planning, and not necessarily action, just thinking and planning based on what we've kind of heard today. So in a moment, I'd just like to open it up to questions, but just before I do, maybe I could ask you, Laurie, why is our environment so important where we are? So most of us are probably happy where we are based on the show of hands earlier, but over time, why is environment so important?
Well, it's important to maintain safety, for one. So when you find you're maybe not in a safe environment anymore, it can lead to injury, which is a game changer in your health. It's about emotional well-being as well. The environment that helps you maintain purpose. I think we all find we need purpose, and so where you are does matter for those reasons.
I guess social would be the other one, socialization.
Absolutely, social. I mean, we're creatures. Most humans thrive on some sort of personal interaction, and when you don't have that, it has the capabilities of changing how you thrive, how you live. And I think our families, we all hope that we're going to enjoy our lives to the fullest as long as we possibly can.
Right, thank you. So let's just talk about resources just for a moment. What are resources? And they're actually in your handout, but if we could just touch on some of the resources that are available in the community as people are trying to evaluate, plan, thinking about maybe this isn't the best place down the track. What resources? Who wants to start?
Yeah. We talked about the continuum as being one. So that one is a great resource in our community, and they also have, they'll come in and take a look at your space and be able to advise you. And then they also have a team of people that can come in and make modifications to your home as you need it. So that one's terrific.
Ryan?
I think, your friends, any of us on the stage right now, any of the sponsors, we're all willing to help. I mean, it's what we do for a living, right? I wouldn't have gotten into this business if I wasn't interested in helping folks. So, and then, anybody out there, any of the EDs for independent, assisted, memory care for that matter, they're all willing to help. Like you can go have lunch there and sample the food typically. See if that's a place for you. See what the other folks look like. See what the other, what everyone's doing for activities and stuff. I don't think there's any limit to resources really in this community. Reno, this area, Northern Nevada area is just really, really tight. And we're all willing to help each other. I get calls from EDs and directors from places all the time, like, hey, who do you know that does this? Who do you know that does this? And I'm, always helping people with anything like that. I welcome you to, bend my ear for anything that you guys have questions on. I never say no. And if I don't know the answer, I'm going to get you an answer, or I'm going to refer you to the right person.
Thanks, Ryan. Laurie?
Well, we work a lot with family members. So if you have family members that you're close to, they're a resource for you also, whether they're here or in another city. But they often do a lot of legwork for their parents on helping them know what choices are out there, what options are out there, providing you with the transportation to get there. The internet is still a really good resource too. I have many people who simply just start looking, maybe with the intention of moving in 5 years or 10 years or never. But as Ryan said, once you talk to one person in a senior living type capacity, they know people. So describe your story, whatever your concerns are, and you'll probably find that they will put you in touch with someone who can continue answering questions for you.
Annette, you had a
Yes, we have put together a resource on our website, because one of the things that we noticed is just finding there are a lot of resources, but being able to know like all the different communities that are, where they're located, what's their contact information. So on our website, janellegroup.com, under the senior 55 plus senior living, we have an actual map showing where all the communities are, because a lot of times people want to live, if they're going to move into a community, they want to move into one that's near their home. So which ones are near your home, and all their contact information, their website, all of that is offered on our website for free. We also have that same information. We put together a directory that we offer for free. We did have them at the back of the room. I'm not sure. Oh, they are. Okay. So they're in the back of the room for those people that are in the audience that are interested in having one. This is also located on our website where you can print it out as a PDF or just give us a call and we're happy to send it to you. Again, it's free and it just has all the information about the communities, which ones are which and what kind of services that they offer to you. And then there's the community resource guide. Again, it's free and it has all the different communities that are and resources that are available in our area. It's based out of Carson City, so it's geared a little bit more towards the Carson area, but they definitely have resources here in Washoe County as well.
and state resources, yeah.
State resources, yes.
So for those who are at home, it's in the handout with the link, and for those who are here, your handout has the link where to find that information. And then what else? Two of our past seminars you might find helpful as well. There's resource downloads under those if you weren't here or online for Zoom for those ones. The Truth About Finding Untapped Resources was a great handout with a lot of resources there back in November, and also back in April of last year, The Truth About Staying Independent has a list of resources as well within the community. And if you just go to the retiredlivingtrueseries.com, where you're probably registered to be here today, and click on past events, you'll be able to find those events and the handouts and the recordings of those. Two seminars that are coming up, Annette, sorry, Alexa, maybe you can just throw up the poll. Next month, we're doing The Truth About Downsizing and Simplifying on April the 22nd. And then on May 20th, The Truth About 55 plus living options. So for those who are at home, if you'd like to attend either of those, Alexa's just put up a poll and you can just check on there if you wish to participate. You'll see there's a second option. If you would like to be on the wait list to attend in person, select that and we'll reach out to you. And based on room capacity for next month, then we can let those know who would like to be here in person. And for those here in the room, on your evaluation form, the yellow form, there's a box on there if you would like to attend next month. I don't think we were smart enough to put a box on there if you want to be here in person. So if you want to be here in person again versus online, just write in there in person. That would help us. Did I get everything there, Alexa? Yep, great. I guess this doesn't want to move with the poll, so we'll just leave the poll up. Let's just open it up to audience question and answers. So while Alexa gets the technology part for the people at home up and running, let's take questions from here. If I can borrow a mic, thank you, Ryan. It's on. If you'd just come up to the microphone here to ask your question, and that's so everyone at home can hear you. Otherwise, they're not going to be able to hear what you're asking, if you wouldn't mind. So yeah, if you have a question, like to come up. Thank you. So anyone else who has questions, when the microphone's free, feel free to walk up to the microphone and ask your question. And then for those people who are at home, if you raise your hand, so in the Zoom screen, there's a little raise hand button. If you click on that, that'll signify to us that you have a question. We'll unmute you and everyone here in the room will be able to hear you. I guess I'm meant to be looking at that camera. Everyone will be able to hear you, and then you can ask your question and the panelists will respond. So yeah, please go ahead and ask your question.
I wanted to ask about the CCRC and what is, oh, I'm sorry, what is the criteria to have one in our communities?
Basically, because we've talked to...
Can you just repeat the question?
What is the criteria to having a CCRC in our community? It's population. The CCRCs are the continuing care communities. They're expensive, and they need to see that there's enough of a demand in our area to bring one here. In fact, in the state of Nevada, there's only one, and it's near Las Vegas. So they need the population to generate it. Most of the CCRCs, that's why you see them in California. They've got them up and down the coast in California and inland area, but it's where there's large groups of people. To get into a CCRC, you need to typically, they're all run a little bit differently, but typically you need to put down a large sum of money just to move into it. So most people need to sell their house in order to move in. And again, of course, you have to qualify health-wise to be able to move in. But to give you an example, it can be $300,000 to $1 million just to move into the community, let alone the monthly payment. But once you move in, they can't kick you out. So it's basically peace of mind. And the nice thing about it, again, it depends on the CCRC, but some of them, what happens, that initiation fee of $300,000 to $1 million, that once you pass away, or if you decide to move out of the community, a large portion of that is given over to your estate. So it's basically held there. One of the CCRCs that we worked with when we were in California, it was 75% was given back to the estate. So it's basically held there until you decide to move out or you pass away.
Thank you. Pat, you have a question?
Mm-hmm. My question is mainly to Ryan, and that is, I would like to very definitely know about the cost differences between at-home care and assisted living.
Absolutely. Ryan's just turning on his microphone.
Oh, there we go. So in-home care is typical, well, I think every agency in town is hourly. So for us, it's $30 an hour. We have minimums, which are 3 days a week, 4 hours a day. So we have to have a minimum so that we can, provide the consistency with the caregivers. Assisted living is typically, and I'm just going to throw a loose number because everyone's different based on how nice they are. They run, I would say, $6,000 to $8,000 a month, give or take, depending on the level of care. Now, keep in mind, there's different levels of care with assisted. You could be, move in at care level 1 and only need medication management. And then by the time you're ready to move, with any kind of disease state or anything like that, you could bump up levels of care. And those are typically $500 a month per level of care, give or take. Now, I'm not speaking for any assisted living out there. That's just kind of what I've seen in my experience with my in-laws and stuff like that. That's kind of the deal. So in-home care, if you have 24/7 care, it's like $20,000 a month. If you just have the minimums, it's only about $1,300 a month. Okay, and that's where the cost prohibitive. That's where it becomes very cost prohibitive to have 24/7 care, and that's where we'll usually make a recommendation to move to assisted living. So that's kind of the general gist there.
Thank you, Ryan. Now, that was a big number, so you could see there's a point where it makes more sense
I know,
maybe to be in a new best place.
Pat almost jumped out of her seat there.
Yeah. Being in an assisted living community doesn't cost that amount, but maybe you really want to be in your home. So, yeah, it comes down to finances. Alexa is just letting me know we have people listening into the call via their phone. If you have a question, just press *9 on your phone, and that'll let us know that you have a question. We'll unmute you, and the room will be able to hear your question as well as the speakers. And sorry, Alexa, someone has a question. Bev at home. Oh, okay. So Bev, is Bev unmuted? Let's see if our technology is working. Speak to us, Bev. And have we checked the window, Alexa, for people who are typing in their questions? Yeah, Vic, do you want to come up and run through a couple of questions?
Can you stay here?
Yeah, please. Yeah, use that microphone. Do one, and then I think you have a question, Avis, if you want to walk up to the microphone. So do one, Vic, and then...
Okay. All right, first question we have here is from Carolyn, and she would like to know, I know how a reverse mortgage works, but how does a reverse buy work?
Who would like to take that?
So,
oh, you've got a microphone.
I do have a microphone. So it basically works the same way as a reverse mortgage if you were to stay in your home. You need to qualify. You typically need to, depending on your age, is how much you need to put down. So it can be, the one that we most recently did, they needed to have 50% down. So they were able to buy a $400,000 home, put down $200,000, and then they didn't have any payments after that. So basically they move in, no payments, but they have enough of the equity in there to be able to cover the fact that they're not making those payments for the reverse mortgage. Yeah, but it depends on your age. So I would recommend talking to a reverse mortgage specialist, which we do have several sponsors that are reverse mortgage specialists to be able to talk about that.
Yeah, if you're wanting to find out more, Debbie Wood and Kerry McKinney are both in the sponsor packet for those in the room or at home. If you just go to the website, and both of them are fantastic, and yeah, we'll definitely provide you with great information.
Okay, here's a different subject, and that is information about the 55 plus communities and the availability in terms of real estate in this market right now. I have a girlfriend that lives in Las Vegas that was very seriously considering coming up to the Reno market, and what she checked on the availabilities in 55 plus communities, she had to let go of those plans. So how can you, as real estate agents, help us find a home in a 55 plus community?
So Pat, I assume you're referring to purchasing one versus moving
Correct.
into it. Okay, so probably best for you, Annette.
So one of the things, you're right. I mean, our real estate market across the board right now is crazy. Prices have gone through the roof, and being able to find a home, whether it's 55 plus or just a regular home, it is challenging for people. So one of the things that we do is we always market to the 55 plus communities. And oftentimes we'll find out about somebody that's even thinking about making a move. So we have those conversations with them. Actually, recently we've sold several in Del Webb, and we're talking to several that are in the Toll Brothers Regency as well that are thinking of moving. But it's challenging. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter if you're 55 plus or just a regular home. Our market is challenging right now.
We have way more demand than we have supply, unfortunately.
We are seeing more homes come on the market. I just have to say that last year in 2020, it was an unusual year for real estate, because in March, April is when we start seeing more homes come on the market. And what ended up happening is that people chose not to put their homes on the market because of COVID. They didn't want people coming through their homes. They didn't want to make the move. They just like put the brakes on everything. And in effect, what ended up happening is during the time when we see more homes come on the market, we saw a lot fewer homes come on the market, and we still had the demand of people that wanted to move in. It just shot up our prices like crazy. We're seeing more homes come on the market now. People are more comfortable. They've gotten vaccinated. We have a more comfort level of like, okay, this is our new reality right now. Whereas before it was just so much unknown. They didn't want to have anything to do with putting their home on the market. So I do see that our market is going to loosen up a bit as we move forward, because again, we're moving into our period of time where we typically see more homes come on the market. So I expect that we'll see that, and we're already starting to see that. We're at the very beginning of that though.
I think we saw a lot more buyer demand last year than normal too. A lot of people, because they could now work from home, decided to move from California or wherever it might be to Reno and get rid of state taxes and less expensive. So that put demand on it. And then even local people decided to move up, because if I'm working from home, my 3-bedroom home's not enough because I've got kids, the rooms are all used, I need an office, so now I need a 4-bedroom home. So there's just a lot more buyer demand and a whole lot less supply, and that's what's really pushed prices.
Yeah.
Yeah, so great question. Avis, you have a question for us?
Getting back to the senior care.
Come a little bit closer to the microphone if you can.
Getting back to the senior care, where does long-term health insurance fall into paying for it, or?
Yeah, no, that's actually one of the things that my company has kind of found a niche with over the past 5 years of being in business. And so long-term care insurance will typically pay for in-home care. There's some policies, some of the older policies I've seen out there that will only pay for skilled nursing. Long-term care insurance will typically pay for in-home care, adult daycare like the Continuum, assisted living, not independent living, but they will pay for a caregiver to come in if you're in independent living, and then assisted living and memory care, and oftentimes skilled nursing. So it really, every policy is dramatically different, and we do free policy reviews. If you want us to take a look at it at some point, myself or Vic back in the room can certainly do that. But it's a really great service that we provide that we can look at and at least tell you what you have to work with. And we do a really pretty in-depth policy review that, we call the insurance company, get them on the phone. We spend about 15 minutes with them on the phone, find out exactly what they'll pay for. I mean, you can get sometimes home modifications. I've gotten a $20,000 bathroom remodel done through a Genworth policy. So there's all kinds of things hidden in the fine print that we can look at. So, but again, every policy is dramatically different. So we just need to take a look at it. Fair? Okay.
Because you've had people who didn't realize what their policy covered and they've missed out on taking advantage of.
And the thing is, most of the policies we're looking at, the folks are in their 70s and 80s, and they bought it 20, 30 years ago. And so, a lot of times they don't know that there's what's called an inflation rider, where it inflates every year by a certain percent. 5% is typical. And so, or they might have, mild dementia, and they can't even figure out where their policy is, much less what it'll handle. So all we need is a policy number. And oftentimes we can get it just with a policy number, and we'll come to your home, we'll sit, at your coffee table and do it with you, so you really understand exactly what the policy can do. Yeah. So, and oftentimes we do them with the kids, which is totally fine. It really is just, every situation is different. So just let us know, and we're happy to help.
It falls back into that thinking and planning part, just knowing
Exactly.
what your options
Yeah.
are.
Yeah.
So Vic, you have another one to come up with, Vic? So a big thank you to Vic from Armada Senior Care, who's reading our questions today on behalf of those.
You're very welcome.
I love your deep voice, Vic.
All right, guys, this is from anonymous attendee regarding mastery zone affecting comfort and safety. Technology is driving our lives and requires us to do our affairs by internet. For example, online banking, bill paying, doctor appointments, lack of individuals to answer questions. How do we stay technologically capable with these changes as we age?
Great question.
I kind of do. I think.
Did you have an answer, Vic? Did you want to answer that question?
Well, I'll let Brian go here, but yeah, I think they're asking, how do they just keep up with the technology changes that are happening?
Yeah. I've heard of some people that can come in and help folks with technology, basically. I mean, our caregivers can do it to a certain degree. I mean, we're not going to get into your bank accounts or anything like that. Myself, Vic, I know Vic loves doing that stuff. So, but I think that there should be some sort of class, and maybe we can talk about that a little further and get someone that, like Sarah Felice, for instance, she has put it in order. But figuring out how we can get, maybe like an IT company or someone that owns a computer store to just do some real general classes with folks. I don't know of any offhand, but I think that there's probably a strong demand for that. And I think that any person that decided to do that could really thrive.
So thank you, Ryan. That's great. I'll add a couple of things to it. One, in August the 19th, we have the Truth About Technology for Seniors. So for that person, that might be a great seminar to come along where we'll talk about that, keeping up with changing technology and how to use technology to our advantage as we age. And then also there's an organization, a non-profit across the US called cyberseniors.org, cyber, C-Y-B-E-R, seniors.org. And they provide a complimentary service of education to help us work out how to do prescriptions online shopping, paying our bills, and they'll do one-on-one with you. You can make an appointment with them and they'll help you walk through whatever area of technology. And they have classes on a regular basis covering each of those, but they'll also provide one-on-one help if you want to learn more about that. And then I know Ollie, Osher Lifelong Learning Institute here, a part of UNR, they also have lots of classes, and a lot of those are technology related as well. If you're looking to learn a specific aspect of technology, it's worth looking at their program. And I think to be a member of Ollie, it's like $50, maybe $55 per year. Fantastic organization. And for anyone who can't afford it, they do have scholarships. They don't want anyone to miss out. And it's also a great place for socialization. If you're feeling lonely and want to learn and be with other people, I'm not sure what they're doing at the moment, but once we get past this and we're all vaccinated, they're up and going again now. Thank you, Laurie. Yeah, so that's another great organization we have locally. Did you have another question, Vic? From
So there is a question here from Nona Perry. It's regarding reverse mortgage again. It's a little more detail on that. She's asking, I understand a reverse mortgage requires total property upkeep on part of the owner. This can easily be cost prohibitive, and the property can be taken if the responsibilities are not met. Is this true? Is that something that we can answer here today?
Yeah, we can easily answer that. Did you want to take it, or do you want me to?
Yeah, so basically, you still have to pay your taxes. If there's a homeowner's, not insurance, but an HOA, then you need to pay for that. So, and if you don't pay for either one of those, yes, your house, just like if you owned any house, if you didn't pay for your HOA, or if you did not pay your taxes, they can foreclose on you. But those are the only two reasons why that I'm aware of.
Well, actually, who's had a mortgage here before? Anyone had a mortgage in the room or in a home? Yeah, well, probably most of us. Did you realize in the fine print in there, you are agreeing to maintain your home to a reasonable standard, that you're not going to let it become dilapidated and fall apart? And if you do, the bank does have the right to come in and foreclose on it, just on a regular any-day mortgage. So a reverse mortgage is no different. It has the same text in it as does a regular mortgage. It's just you never really ever see it enforced. So I've never come across or heard from our lenders, and Debbie and Kerry would be great ones to talk about, but the lender's not coming, the reverse mortgage lender or your regular lender. Who's had the lender come and knock on their door saying, I want to have a look at your house? You know, they don't. So I wouldn't be so concerned about that. But as Annette said, you need to maintain taxes, HOA, just like you do on any property. A reverse mortgage really isn't any different, except it's reverse instead of forward. Yeah.
Right.
But great question. Anyone else here in the room have questions? Do we have any more from people on Zoom, Vic? And did we have someone who had their hand up wanting to be unmuted? I'd really like to hear a voice through our speakers from someone who's out there in their pajamas, sitting at home, watching this. We do. Who's that, Alexa? Paul. So we've just unmuted you, Paul. Talk to us.
Well, I got a question probably for Annette. If you've got a family that wants to downsize, they don't really want to go to a community, but with the really tight inventory of homes available, how do they handle selling their home and buying another one without having to sell their home first?
Well, we've actually been doing that exact same scenario. We've been dealing with that, and it is a couple ways. One, if they're moving into a 55 plus community, yes, our market is crazy right now, and there aren't a huge number of homes on the market, but there aren't as many buyers for 55 plus because it's already limited by the age. So we have had instances where we find the home first and then we put their home on the market, but we have to make sure that their home is ready to go in order to be able to put it on the market right away. They're actually in a much better position if you put your home on the market first, get a buyer on it, because then you know exactly how much money you have to work with. And then we asked, because this market is so crazy, you can pretty much ask for anything from the buyer. We've asked for 60-day rent back. In some cases, one of them we asked for, I think it was a 5-month rent back. And now in a situation like that, it had to be a cash buyer because a lender isn't going to allow more than 60-day rent back if it's going to be owner occupied. And so that allowed our sellers that are now buyers to have the confidence of knowing the cash that they have available, and they've got this rent back period to be able to close escrow on the next house. So there are definitely ways to maneuver. That is actually the best way because you know how much money you have to work with.
And contingent on them perhaps finding a home.
It is, well, you can do it contingent on finding a home, but that can really scare off buyers. And if you really want to get that rent back, you want as many buyers interested in your home as possible because that allows you more negotiation power. So I wouldn't necessarily put that in there. You can, but I think you'll limit your buyers by doing that. You're better off just asking for a long rent back. And like I said, one of them, it was 5 months rent back. And they got it because this market is crazy enough to give it to you.
Annette, is this market crazy?
Yes.
Are we in crazy times at the moment? Everything's crazy. Any other questions from in here before we wrap up? Yeah, Pat, please. Vic, did you have any more from Zoom? Perfect. No other hands up, Alexa? Go ahead, Pat.
One quick question about downsizing. Does that include getting rid of junk in a house?
Yeah, for next month?
For,
Or just in general?
No, for a house. If we have, my mother just passed away this last year, and we have got storage and storage and storage areas filled with her possessions. And if we are downsizing, can you also help us get rid of the junk that we are trying to get rid of?
So yes, we have a business, Janelle Moves Made Easy, that we work in conjunction with our real estate business. So we have a client right now where the parents passed away a year ago. The house, it was literally like they just got up and walked out, and everything, the 4,000 square foot house, everything's in there, but it's been sitting there for a year. So you can imagine what it looks like now. And we are going in and we're clearing out the entire house. So we take care of all of it, and what we're able to sell, we sell, because our goal is to be able to sell the items inside the house, to be able to give to our clients to help pay for their next move or whatever they're doing, or if it's to the family, it goes back to the family to help them as far as maintaining the house until we sell the house too.
Great question. Alexa has one more hand up for our audience at home. Say that one more time. Athena? Athena, go ahead, Athena.
It's just a comment on Ollie.
Yes.
I'm on the committee, and I just wanted to tell you we're still on Zoom, but we are in discussions right now for the possibility of opening up in-house stuff maybe by the end of the summer.
Great, thank you, Athena. So classes are still happening, but they're on via Zoom versus back in person. Yeah. So we should all be so proud that we're back to kind of doing it in person with all of these technical glitches and so forth, working out the technology. Did you guys have anything before we wrap up? No? So I just wanted to say thank you for all being here today. Thank you so much for bearing with us with our little technology problems today. And we look forward to hopefully seeing you next month for the truth about downsizing and simplifying. Thank you to our panelists, and wishing everybody else a great day. Thank you again.